But right now, and this is the gentleman who is responsible for that song, Cops on Acid. Plague Dad is here. Let me get that mic up there. Frank Gallagher, better known as Plague Dad. Hello, sir.
How are you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you here. We're going to play some of your other tunes today as well.
Right.
But I do have to ask you right off the top, is that song, Cops on Acid, is that based on an actual experience? Did you encounter a member of law enforcement who was on acid?
Well, no, not so much that. That was more the speculative part.
Okay.
It is actually based on an incident, though. A former life, I used to be a bike messenger back in San Francisco.
Okay.
So I rode around the city, delivering things, picking up things, and dropping them off.
Yeah.
For money. So one day I had picked up a filing that needed to make it to City Hall by 4:30, a deadline. I needed to get there quick. I was on my way. I was riding up Market Street as quickly as I could, and I ran into a police officer who was the doors of his cruiser were wide open. He was directing traffic, but blaring out of the he was listening to the Dead out of his cruiser while he was directing traffic. And I was like, okay, that's just interesting. You don't see that every day.
No.
And it stuck with me. And then later that night, I wrote that song.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe, so what about the shooting of the dog? Because that does happen, as you know.
It does. That was something that I literally torn from the headlines,
yeah,
so to speak.
Oh,
so
okay.
that was, with songwriting, you try to, at least my approach is to try to start from something personal.
Yeah.
Whether it's deeply personal or superficially personal, I guess really is a judgment call.
Yeah.
But then try to establish some connections and broaden the universality of it at that point. And given everything that's going on with our police these days, that seemed to be a direction to take it in.
Because they will. If you have a dog who needs to be put down, they will do it for you.
Oh yeah.
You just have to have like if you have a warrant for something, they'll show up at your house. They'll shoot your dog if you if you have like Old Yeller or something. You don't want to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you're not. But just to be clear, you're not. You're not pro law enforcement on acid. I assume.
Well, I always think that drug use is a personal choice, and
yes.
while if somebody who holds that position wants to do that, that would be fine. I probably while they're not on duty,
right? Right.
But what they do on their own time is their business.
It is a fun song though, very catchy.
It is,
and it's fun, and it's it makes me laugh when I listen to it. And we should say, so you're getting some traction with this. You're getting airplay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On do you know? Do you have any idea how many stations at this point have picked it up?
Oh, you've eight or 10 that I know of.
Yeah.
Throughout New England, and then there's some in California that have started to play it as well. It's funny because you look at technology these days, like Apple Music. For the artists now, if you're on Apple Music, they have started to track radio plays.
Yes.
And they will tell you what stations. So it's gotten some play, and it's amazing. Like the Midwest, it's gotten some play out in the Midwest. It's gotten some play in Brazil.
Yeah.
It's gotten some play in Japan. It's starting to get some traction.
Yes.
And I've noticed at shows now, I play a lot of shows. For me, that's the essence of music. I love making records and I love radio, but music to me is essentially it's a very deeply personal experience.
Yes.
And so at shows now, when I play that song, people are actually starting to sing along.
Oh, that's great.
Which blows me away.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very cool. That's awesome. We should mention too, and I'll put the camera back on me for a moment for people watching online on the Facebook or YouTube, so people can see it. So you brought this.
Yep.
I'll kind of hold it up. Can't zoom in, unfortunately. But so this is vinyl.
It is. It's a 7-inch record.
Very cool.
Got 4 songs on it.
Very cool. Yes. So a 7-inch for those who don't know, young people might not know, that it's like and you can put this on a regular turntable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. But for people who don't know, because vinyl has had such a resurgence, but to see a 7-inch like this, that's unusual.
Well, it's very. I pressed 200 copies of these. I've sold more than 100 of them now.
I just realized,
which is amazing to me. To sell 107-inch records is just. And again, getting back to that deeply personal experience. I listen to music through all sorts of medium. I listen to Spotify. I listen to Bandcamp. I go to shows. I listen to records. But what I'm finding out is that for a growing number of people, they want some sort of physical connection
Yes.
to the music.
Yeah.
And a record or a cassette or to a lesser extent a CD will provide that.
Yeah.
I mean, that the first 50 copies of that come with a comic book.
Oh, no kidding.
As well, that you can only get with this record. And it was done by the artist named Paul Courtjohn, who did the cover art as well. And he's a fairly well-known underground comics artist in the UK.
Okay.
And I ran into him online because on this record is a cover of a tune by Black Flag called Six Pack.
Oh, okay.
And we can't play it here today because it's heavy laden with profanity.
Okay.
And it just isn't appropriate for the audience on a Saturday morning here. But
yes,
Paul is an enormous Black Flag fan. And he came across the song and we hooked up and we talked and he's offered to do the cover of the record.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because he just really dug the tune. And I was like,
yeah.
Hell yeah, man, absolutely. So, and then he said, well, you want to do a comic book too? And I said, I'll draw a comic book and you can just give it away.
Wow.
So he sent me the files, from the UK and I printed it here and I printed 50 copies. I have 8 left. I keep forgetting to bring the comics to the shows when I sell the record. So, mail order, you definitely get the comic book. If you come to a show, if I remember to bring them. I did bring them today. I'll bring one in after the show. I'll give you guys one.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a very offensive comic book to some people. Yeah, it pushes the boundaries.
Okay. Okay.
Which is right up my alley.
Now, where do you record?
I record wherever I can, honestly. This record was recorded at Monaco Studios in Falmouth, Maine.
Okay.
And it was engineered and mixed by a man named Dan Capaldi, who is an absolutely gifted producer, engineer, musician. This guy has some of the best ears that I've ever run across. And he also plays drums and sits in with me sometimes at shows if I need a drummer.
Oh, okay.
So he's played with me a couple of times. He plays with everybody in Portland. If you've seen a band in Portland, you've probably seen Dan Capaldi.
Yeah.
Play drums or bass or guitar or,
Well, every drummer I know, I mean, it's a consistent theme on the show. Every drummer I know is in like multiple bands.
Yeah, indeed. So this one was recorded there at Monaco Studios. Now, Dan has his own little studio now that he's just set up in Portland. I don't even know if it has a name yet, but I hope to do some recording there. I also do, I'm touring part. I play a lot of shows with a band called Vices Inc.
Yes,
who were supposed to be here this morning. They couldn't make it. That's by virtue of their absences, I guess, is how I sort of walked into this.
Yeah.
But they have a studio, so I'm going to be doing some recording there. I've done some recording with them as well.
Excellent.
So really, wherever I can fit it in. I also just record up in my attic. I have a little home studio that I demo things up there, and I try to record as many live shows as I can.
Really?
Yeah, because every live show has a different feel. So I just did a tour in August with Vices Inc., and I recorded a bunch of those shows. And I have another set that I recorded at the Odeon Theater in Portland where I opened up a film festival. I was the opening act for a film festival.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So I recorded that. That was with a full band, very much the sound that you heard with this track that you played, bass, drums, mandolin, vocals, guitar. So I have a half-hour set of that sound. And then I have another show that's a half an hour that's solo, just me and a foot drum.
Oh, no kidding.
And it's very different feel, but it's the same songs.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's almost the same set list.
Okay.
So I'm going to release that on a cassette-only release.
Okay.
So you're going to get, the full band on one side and the solo set on the other side, and I'm going to print 100 copies. They're in production right now, and Paul is going to do the cover art for that as well.
Okay.
And those are going to be available on my website, plague.dad,
yeah,
and on my Bandcamp page as well.
By the way, I think it's so cool that your site is plague.dad because a lot of people too, I'm a web designer, so I know this, but a lot of people probably don't even realize that, you can get a lot of different,
absolutely,
it doesn't have to be .com or .net or, at this point you can get almost anything if you're willing to pay for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I kind of backed into this one too, because I do a lot of this myself. So I built the website myself. I did, I came to the URL myself, all the marketing. That's sort of the nature of the music business these days.
Yeah.
And I went through I'm going to name and shame here. I went through GoDaddy to buy my domain name. And I had plaguedad.com.
Yeah.
It was, which was fine. And I got it for a year, and it expired.
Yeah.
And GoDaddy has created a company now, and they bought the thing out from under me and offered to sell it back to me for $600.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Not only am I done, I'm actually going to just, whenever the opportunity comes up, I'm going to talk smack about you. So here we are talking smack about GoDaddy, because if that's their business model for independent artists, then they are going down the wrong road. So now found somebody else. I've learned how to do this myself. I just changed the domain, plague.dad. So much better.
Well, who do you own we should plug, who do you own the domain through now?
It's, I believe it's through Bandzoogle, I think.
Okay, yeah. I use Bandzoogle.
Yeah, and they help with the website and
great,
make it really easy. And
absolutely.
They set up the store to sell the records. I mean, it's just sort of a one-stop shop. And for a musician who is really trying to, do everything themselves, they have a suite of tools that makes it just as easy as it can possibly be.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. No, that's very cool. So where does the name come from? Plague Dad, and people can probably guess.
Indeed.
That we did go through a little bit. People might remember a bit of a pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in fact, that is where it comes from.
Yeah.
When the pandemic emerged, like a lot of folks, I lost my job at the time.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of time on my hands. I ended up in my attic just writing songs, and I've always been a musician. I've ended up writing some songs and recording them, and I would send them out to friends or post them on snippets on social media, and it started to get some traction. And I was like, well, wow, that's kind of cool. So the name just sort of suggested itself. I mean, we during that time, we sort of all, for better or worse, turned inward. I mean, it was very, you were alone.
Yeah.
And with your family, in my case, I am a father. I have, 3 kids, and it's just sort of emerged as a, in a time like that, you're at least for me, family was one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And so it just sort of captured everything that was going on at that time, both personally and culturally, for me.
Yeah.
In a bumper sticker, if you will. And then from a marketing perspective, I was like, all right, that really conjures up everything that I would need a band name.
Right.
It does what it needs to do as a band name.
Right. Yeah. No, it's great. And regular listeners hear me say this all the time, but I always say, the pandemic was an awful experience for us all.
Absolutely.
But you got to find these silver linings where you can. And one of the big silver linings is, just broadly, is it really kind of forced people to be more creative.
Very much so.
And find ways to do things, or expand on existing ways to do things. But, for example, you saw a lot of like bands, doing online performances where they're all in separate places, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
It also opened people up to people who may have been, because I ask every guest, where do you record? Because you have so many options now. But it really kind of, I think the pandemic opened people up to people who maybe were resistant to, just sending files back and forth and recording that way, now found themselves in a position where, okay, well, I guess I better figure out how to make this work. So it really kind of, I think, expanded the boundaries that people have in their minds in terms of how to be creative, how to make music, or anything else.
Oh, indeed. No question. And, it's interesting. With all the technology that exists now, there's a toolbox that is unprecedented. I mean, from a musical perspective, the power that we have available to us now as musicians is exponentially stronger and more robust than it was even just a couple of years ago, let alone 10 or 20 years ago. Curiously, though, I used that technology to, I wanted to create a sound and some material that could be played should that technology not be available. What can I just do with a voice,
right?
Some wood and some guitar strings, wooden instruments,
that
don't have to be amplified, a foot drum, these tools that are there regardless of whatever the technology situation is.
Yeah.
And again, it gets back to that connection, that deeply personal connection. I'm not saying that, you can't forge that connection through technology, but I was looking for something a little more primal.
Yeah.
And so I really, you made an artistic decision to base this in acoustic instruments and that acoustic sound filtered through that punk rock ethos that brought me into music in the first place.
Yeah. So prior to this, prior to Plague Dad, what were you doing musically before? Were you in a band or were you?
Yeah. This is a long sordid tale. How much time we have?
Oh, we have time. Yeah, it's only 9:20. We got time.
Indeed,
I love a long sordid tale.
Yeah, no, I started playing, a long back in the. Into this, I'm in my 50s.
Okay.
So I started playing. My first band was a band called Scouts Honor, and I went to the Berklee College of Music and was with a couple of Berklee students who happened to be from San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
And we gigged around Boston. We played the Rat. We played TTs. We doing some things like that.
Yeah.
And then these guys said, you know what? Let's just move to San Francisco, man. Let's just, So we bought a school bus, ripped out the seats, threw all our crap in, and moved to San Francisco.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Now, what year was this?
This was in 1987.
Okay, 87.
Yeah. So we started playing around there and did pretty well. Put out a record. We ended up playing a show with Nirvana.
No
we ended
kidding.
Up playing a show with the Goo Goo Dolls. We ended up playing with a couple of bands like Alice Donut and Primus and Mr. Bungle. And I mean, we were going up and down the West Coast, playing from LA to Seattle, doing that whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And you could, there's still a couple copies of that record floating around somewhere. I'm sure you could find it on eBay or Discogs or something like that.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where that just wasn't fun anymore.
Did it become more like work?
It did. Yeah. And it became,
it's a grind. I mean, people think, oh, you go on tour and
oh my gosh,
it's just wine, women, and song, as I heard someone say once, and it's not.
Right. Yeah. No. And beyond that, there's just sort of the emotional aspect to it as well. I've come to understand on a deeply personal level that comparison is the thief of joy. And at that point in my life as a young person, you're all about, is this successful? Is it going to be successful? What am I, It's all about that competition. And one day we had booked a show and we were going to open for Helmet at the Kennel Club, which was a club in San Francisco at the time on Divisadero Street. And the guy, we had played there a couple times and the shows were great. And the club owner called me back a couple of weeks before the show and he said, you know what? You guys are off the show.
Oh.
I said, what? Why? He said, well, we got to call. Helmet was on Amphetamine Reptile at that time before they had gotten big.
Yeah.
Huge. And he said, the label called and they said, we can't get Helmet unless we take these two other acts that they want to promote as well. And sorry. And that was it. I could just feel something just snapped.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm done.
Yeah.
This is it. I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I went back. I left San Francisco. I went back to school. And
did you go back to Berklee or
no? I went to Orono. Went to UMaine.
Okay.
And became a journalist.
Oh,
reporter. I was a reporter for a long time.
No kidding.
A print reporter, a columnist, and an editor. Made my way back to San Francisco, where I actually covered City Hall politics in San Francisco for quite a while. And what's fascinating to me is that the folks who are emerging into the national power structure now, Gavin Newsom, who's the governor, Kamala Harris, these were the folks who were holding the local offices when I was covering them.
Oh, wow.
At City Hall. I remember when Gavin was appointed to the city council by Willie Brown. A good friend of mine was Kamala's chief of staff when she was the district attorney.
Oh, no kidding.
So, I did that for a very long time.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I have a background in print journalism.
Oh, wow.
And got married, raised some kids, and just sort of set the music thing aside for a while to concentrate on journalism and raising my family. And
wow.
When the pandemic rolled around again, though, the opportunity presented itself to get back into some of the music.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah.
And 3.5, 4 years into it, it just keeps rolling, which is,
Yep.
I'm thankful for that every day.
Yeah. Excellent. We should, let's play another track.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll let you pick.
Well, there's 4 songs on this record. There's one called "Slip the Leash," which really speaks to sort of my love-hate relationship with technology.
Oh, okay.
In a minute and a half. It's a very short song.
Which mix should we go with?
Well, let's do the Monaco mix and then talk about because I like to remix tunes, and we've done that with some of these.
Right. Okay, so we'll play the Monaco.
Monaco being the studio where we recorded it, which is why it's got that name.
Yeah, and great sound coming out of there.
Oh, it's fantastic studio. Sam Monaco, who is the host of the Locomotive Show on WMPG.
Oh, no kidding.
Portland is a fantastic supporter of the local music scene in Maine, and he's just a great guy. And that studio is remarkable.
Okay, let's give this a listen. So this is called there it is. Slip the Leash, the Monaco mix, and Plague Dad. Check this out.
We've all got smartphones and a wish to Christ I didn't have mine. What I needed for work, Now we've all got laptops, cause that's how we roll in the world today. That's how we connect, at least that's what they say. I live near the airport, right under the flight path, and I hear the engines, and I see the planes. We take the kids to the airport, look at the flights, we talk about where we might go, start a new life. We've all got smartphones and a wish to Christ I didn't have mine. What I needed for work, and I hate my job.
That is Slip the Leash. That is Plague Dad. We have Frank Gallagher of Plague Dad here with us live in studio. That song in particular, I think, is relatable in that I think probably a lot of people feel that. Well, I shouldn't even say probably. I know a lot of people feel that way because people talk about it all the time on Facebook. You'll see and hear people. Well, I shouldn't say you'll hear, but you'll see people talking about in posts. I hate all this technology.
Well, it's funny. I mean, this one company now has made it the centerpiece of their new ad campaign. It's the ads featuring Alanis Morissette.
Yeah,
or talking about how we all have to use our phone. People, it's this sort of this love-hate relationship with technology, and it's fascinating to me from a cultural and a personal perspective because the promise of the internet was that it would create community and that it would bring us all together.
Right.
And in some ways, it absolutely has done that. But in many other ways, it has done exactly the opposite. Yep. It has fractured communities. It has destroyed communities. And it has very much provided people, this illusion of community when really they're just in their own cocoon with that phone.
Yeah.
And they interact. And people, I don't say they. I'm as guilty of it as anybody. But we interact these days through a screen as opposed to intentionally and personally, which is it is what it is. We make our own decisions about how we deal with that.
I think, and people say things too online that they would never say in person.
Absolutely.
And the way people treat each other online. I mean, like some of the things that have been said to me online, it's like, sometimes I think, I'm not a violent person by any stretch, and I'm no tough guy. But if this person said that to me in real life, to my face, I'd probably punch them.
Absolutely, yeah. No, the facade of anonymity that we either believe in or construct is, it allows that to happen and encourages that to happen.
Yeah.
Screen time courage.
Yeah. And I also hear people say too, like you stepped away from Facebook.
Absolutely.
And from a mental health perspective, you're probably a lot better
Oh,
off.
yes.
But
Best thing I ever did.
But at the same time, it's like, because we were kind of talking off air about how it does put certain constraints on you in terms of promoting what you're doing.
100%, no question. I will reach fewer people because I'm not on Facebook.
Yeah.
But in balance, if you make a list of the upsides and the downsides, the upsides of being off of Facebook vastly outweigh the downsides in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm doing this radio show and everything. There's no way I can.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm locked in. But I don't. I don't engage much in terms of, like the way that I use it. I'll share out things related to the show or promote other things that I'm doing, and I use it for my hypnotherapy practice and all this. Is to let people know what I'm doing. And sometimes I'll post, especially in the last couple of years, I'll post things that might be more personal or
Indeed.
that I just think are funny. But when people start commenting, because the thing is too, we live in a time when you don't have to be even remotely, like I posted something recently about getting vaccinated, and I'd gone to Rite Aid and got my flu shot, and my COVID booster, and so of course. And I just posted something funny about it, how, the pharmacist said, go sit down and for 15 minutes. And then, as soon as he's not looking, I sneak out, because, it's not my first time with it. I know,
Right.
I am going to have a side effect, but it's going to be later when I'm exhausted. But of course, so I just post something like that because I think it's funny. And of course, anti-vaxxers and everybody's make it a totally political thread. But what I do is I don't engage because I don't argue about politics or anything. I don't argue with people on social media. I refuse to. Yeah. I find it both just unenduringly it's so tedious and it's entirely pointless.
Oh yeah.
And so I actually learned to kind of enjoy when that happens. Because people start posting all this mean, angry stuff at me over what I thought was just a funny post. But instead of engaging, I actually take pleasure in not engaging, knowing that it's making them crazy that I'm not engaging. Because they want me to argue with them.
Right.
And they want me to fight with them, and I'm not doing it. And I know it bothers them.
Indeed. Well,
and I actually get a laugh out of knowing that it bothers me.
Sure. Yeah, no, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
And it's just, emotionally, like I say, emotionally and intellectually, I just didn't have the bandwidth for it. And again, it's, do I want to give an hour to these people and to Mark Zuckerberg?
Right.
Or do I want to spend an hour in a meaningful time that will, sparks joy?
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
I'll choose my time.
Yeah, exactly. Choose joy. Yeah. Choose joy.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Hug it out. Come on. Bring it in. Hug it out.
Well, no. So let me ask you this. So how have you, because, as we discussed, I mean, you're having some success, Cops on Acid is catching on and you're selling your music. Because a lot of people in the industry listen to the show, a lot of musicians listen to the show. Like, what advice do you have for anyone who maybe doesn't want to have to do, utilize Facebook? Like, what is your approach? How are you doing this?
Play as many live shows as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, music is all about being heard.
Yeah.
It's, it's like that old, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it happen?
Right.
Well, if you write a song and nobody hears it, did it get written? Go out and play shows.
Yeah.
Go to open mics. Go play wherever you can. When this project first started to come together and it seemed as if it would have legs, we couldn't play shows at that. There was no place to physically get a gig because the pandemic had taken care of. Everything was shut down.
Yep.
So I literally went out into the streets and played. I started busking.
Oh, no kidding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I still do it. I love it.
Really?
I go as often as I can. If I'm in Portland and at home and I don't have a show on a Friday or Saturday night, you will typically find me down in the Old Port between 6 and 9 playing music.
No kidding.
Absolutely. I use what's called an amp that is a Roland Cube Street. This thing runs on batteries.
Yeah.
It runs on 8 AA's, and it runs for 6 hours on 8 AA's.
No kidding.
Pushes 50 watts. And It has 3 channels. I can run my guitar and my vocals and my little foot drum through it, and I will just go play for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I've met some amazing musicians just doing that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
yeah.
people will gather around, and I'll bring a crowd. And that I love busking because you will know immediately what works and what doesn't.
Yes.
If people stop and are listening, well, then you're doing something right.
Yeah.
If people are walking by, the thing, I'm looking for reaction. What works, what doesn't work, what makes people happy,
Yep.
what pisses people off. The worst thing in my mind is ambivalence. That's what drives me nuts.
Right.
I hate being ignored.
Right.
And maybe that's a personal thing, and I fully cop to it. Call me inattention or whatever.
No, I think that's human nature.
Yeah. So I don't. If you hate it, but a reaction is what I'm looking for.
Yep.
And busking provides that immediate feedback.
Yeah.
And beyond that, part of being a musician is learning how to perform. And make no mistake, that is a skill set that is separate and apart from learning your scales and your modes and how to solo and how to improvise. And there's an element of showmanship that you need to develop. And the only way to do that is to get out there on the stage and play in front of people.
Right.
And so I'm fortunate enough at this point where I'm actually getting a lot of shows indoors. But if I genuinely love busking because I don't have to be there at 8:15. I don't have to load in at 8:25.
Right.
I don't have to play 22 minutes.
Right.
I don't have to. I can play whatever I damn well please. I can play the same song 4 times if I want.
Yeah.
And I use that to go workshop new material.
Okay.
And some of these songs that we're playing today have evolved dramatically out there on the pitch.
Yeah.
Which is what us buskers call where we play.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that phrase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's so I'm if it's warm tonight, I may actually go out.
Yeah.
Because I have some shows coming up next 3 weekends, but I'm actually off tonight, so I may be out there.
In Portland, I'm just curious. Do you need any kind of a permit or anything, or do they just let you do it? Or
my understanding is that you're supposed to have some sort of permit if you're amplified.
Okay.
And I often am amplified.
Yeah.
That said, I've never had somebody stop me and ask me for that permit.
Oh, that's good.
And I'm down in the old port where, on a Friday or Saturday night where there is a police presence.
Yeah.
And those officers down there have actually come to know me because I'm there frequently.
Yeah.
And like what I do.
Oh, that's
because
good.
they know, I'm a sort of a known commodity.
Yeah.
And I haven't had that problem yet. That said, I've heard from some other buskers in Portland that they've had some run-ins with some some of the compliance staff.
Yeah.
So, but every town is different. Like in Boston, you don't need a permit.
Right.
Across the river in Cambridge, you do.
I didn't know that. Really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So really, if it's something that if you're a musician, it's something you want to try, do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's just fantastic experience. It is so much fun.
Yeah.
But check into it. Make some calls, do the research,
Sure,
figure it out.
Sure.
And
I don't even know what I don't know what the laws are on that or rules are here in Manchester.
It's funny you say that too, because I was coming in this morning and coming over the bridge, and I was like, "Wow, I bet I could busk here."
Yeah.
And it's like whenever I come into a town, that's my first thing. It's like, "Where's the pitch? Where would be the best pitch?"
Yeah. Because I see them on Elm Street, but not much, actually. Not as much as I used to, it seems like.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have no idea what the rule is. But was that, when you first started doing that, was it intimidating at first?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Absolutely.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to, there's a couple of things going on. I'm at the point in my life now where I just don't care what people think anymore. I'm just beyond that.
Yeah.
I really don't. And
that's one of the few good things about getting older.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely.
It's a short list, but as you get older, you just naturally become less self-conscious.
Yeah.
It's more like, who cares what people think?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it's people. You're not hurting anybody. It's just people can ignore it if they want.
Right. Right.
And so it's as long as you're not blocking the sidewalk, that seems to be you don't want to cause anybody any problems.
Yeah.
But if you're just out there doing your thing, yeah. Now, man, I'm a ham. I'm
yeah.
It's you got to work to shut me up now.
Yeah. In the what about in the winter? Is there anywhere where you can do that indoors, like in a mall or something?
Well, it's funny. I don't know about a mall, but like last winter, there's a pub in Portland called Bramhall, which is on Congress Street.
Yeah.
And I just walked in there one night, and the guy behind the bar happened to be the manager. And I said, "Hey, how about you just let me play here every Thursday night?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, here's what I explained to him, that I busked and what's going on." I said, "It's getting too cold. I need a place to play."
Yeah.
I said, "You don't have to pay me, and there's no amplification. It's just me and my acoustic guitar and my drum. So there's no laws about entertainment. There's no permits or anything like that. How about you just let me roll in here with my tip jar Thursday night, on Thursday nights, and play. And if people are digging it, fantastic. If they're not, I'll move along."
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, all right." And I did that for 6 months.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it actually turned out really, and it got to be a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if people start to hear about this, if you're any good, that's why I encourage people to play live. If you're any good, you will find traction.
Yes.
Because people like live music.
Right.
If you suck, maybe not so much.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough that people would come around, and people would come back. They were regulars. They'd come in.
Yeah.
Because they knew what was going on, and people like live music.
Yeah.
So I would start to have friends come by, and I'd have, some people, other musicians that I know from around town sit in, do a couple tunes. It got to become a thing, and it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the place changed ownership, and the new manager came in. It just, the vibe wasn't the same anymore.
Really?
And I was like, yeah, okay, this was played. So
yeah,
we moved on.
Yeah. But I think the broader point, though, it sounds like that you're making is it's so important to build relationships.
Absolutely.
And
that's the currency.
So you can get around Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Or other forms of
but play live.
Play live. Yeah.
And if you're a young musician or a musician who's young in your career and you're just starting out, play as many shows as you can and stay for the other bands. And listen to those other bands and talk with those other bands and create and nurture those relationships, because that's how you find your audience. And that's how you develop your audience, and that's how you grow your audience. I mean, you can have 10,000 followers on Instagram, but if you can't put 12 people into a club, does that have any meaning? Does that have any value?
Yeah.
I would argue no.
Good. Yeah. No, that's a great point and an important one, because the club or the bar or the venue, the promoter, they don't. It's they're impressed if you have a lot of Instagram followers, but what they really care about is how many of them are going to show up.
Exactly. Yeah. So now, it's getting to be. I'm looking around again. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I need to find another Bramhall, because it's getting colder. And that said, I also just need to take some time. I've been playing so many shows and touring, and I think this past summer I played probably 75, 80 shows.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. What I'm saying is I have about 12 to 15 songs. I have a disturbing amount of songs that are half done.
Okay.
I really just need to finish.
Yeah.
So maybe I take 6 or 8 weeks and just take it down a notch and finish those songs.
And when you play live, is it always just you? Do you ever have guest musicians? Or?
I do. I will play with, I look at the show and what the venue is and who I'm playing with, and pull together. If it's a tour, it's probably going to be me solo.
Yeah.
Because the cost musically these days, the business of the music business is so fundamentally broken now that a touring band is very difficult to pull off.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're going to lowball you on the gate. You're not going to get, if you get paid, they're going to take a cut of your merch.
Yep.
You can't do it. It's very difficult.
Right.
So when I go on tour, I'm solo.
Yeah.
When I'm playing locally or, regionally, I will pull together a band. I played a show at Gino's the other night with a band called Euphemia, who, for my money, is the best local band in Portland right now. These guys are fantastic.
They're called Euphemia?
Euphemia. Oh,
okay.
my God. Their new record, self-released. It's been the number one local record at Bull Moose now for a long time.
Oh, no kidding.
These guys are amazing.
Okay.
So I opened for them at Gino's, and I pulled together the punk rock trio for that. I had Dan Capaldi play drums, and a guy named Mike Berkowitz, who plays bass with a couple of jazz bands around town, sat in on bass, and we just ripped it for half an hour, man. Just put together a 30-minute set that, when I go busk now, I'll play for 3 or 4 hours at a time. I mean, I know 100 songs.
Yeah.
A bunch of covers and a bunch of my stuff, and I'll weave that together and sort of pull a set together in the moment based on what's working. You sort of read the room.
Yes.
But when I do a club gig, it's 30 minutes of unrestrained mayhem.
Yeah.
Because I know what works.
Yeah.
Because I've put that time in and I've road tested this material, and I can put together a set list that's contoured, that is just relentless.
Yeah.
And it rips.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And it was a hell of a show.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy those kind of gigs. There's a lot to be said for those.
Oh yeah.
Busking aside, is coming in and doing a set like that's that powerful, and at the end of it, people were just cheering.
Yeah.
I mean, because I do have that element of showmanship that I enjoy that. That's part of being on stage.
Yes.
It's got to be you have to leave it all out there, man.
Yeah.
These people are paying good money for a show. I'm going to make sure they get what they came for.
Yep. Yep.
Speaking of paying good money, I mean, I went to a club the other night and I couldn't $20 cover charge.
Yeah.
That was just to get into the door. $20
in Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it was worth it because there were 5 bands on the bill, but that's a lot of dough.
Sure.
Coming in. But
yeah.
This is where we are.
Yeah.
Musically these days.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's major touring acts that have canceled.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Canceled tours because they can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
And Live Nation has things locked down.
They're predatory. Live Nation. I just have.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot on the show. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're getting sued again.
Good. I hope they lose.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? Yeah, no, these monopolies. Let's play another track.
Yeah. Let's play one off what I call the Mayhem Mix, which is there's an interesting story behind these. So I took the songs that are on this record and I gave them to a friend of mine named Chuck Gonzalez out in San Francisco, who was again another very talented engineer. And I said, Chuck, go nuts.
Yeah,
just play with it, have fun. And his sound and his approach is very different than Dan's, who did the initial mix. So he gave it this sort of psychedelic edge.
Yeah.
And for example, there's a guy named New York Mike who's a DJ on WMPG, and he plays a psychedelic show.
Yeah.
And he didn't like that Monaco mix, but he played the hell out of the Mayhem mix.
Oh, okay.
So
it
does have a very different feel.
Yeah. Which track?
Well, let's try. You know what? Play the Cops, the Mayhem mix of Cops.
Oh, okay.
Because it's got a whole different vibe to it.
Yeah, you're. It's funny too. That's the first one I listened to when I listened to the tracks that you sent me was that mix of Cops on Acid. Yeah. All right. Check this out. This is the Mayhem mix of Cops on Acid, and this is a Plague Dad. the mayhem mix of Cops on Acid by Plague Dad. Mr. Frank Gallagher here with us, live in studio. No dogs were harmed in the actual.
Not a one.
Yes. But no, that is very cool. Frank, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy radio. It's a medium that I keep turning back to because, particularly community stations and college stations, I like to hear what the DJs have to say and what they play. I mean, the algorithm is fine, but I have heard so much and been turned on to so much cool new music by listening to college DJs or community station DJs that it's unbeatable.
I'll mention this briefly. My father, who listens to the show, hi Dad, if you're listening. So he lives on the seacoast here in New Hampshire. And he's in his 70s, and I only mention that because, most people, I don't know, by the time they get to be 30 or 40, they kind of just say, okay, I've heard all the music I'm ever interested in, and I'm not going to like anything new that I hear from this point forward, right? My dad is the opposite of that. He still loves new music. He's always been like that. You'd never, if you got into a car with my dad, you're not going to hear the oldies station coming out of the stereo, right? And he lives on the seacoast, and he loves listening to WUNH.
Oh, fantastic.
Because he loves hearing new music, and he loves college radio.
Yep. No, it's great.
Yeah.
It really is. And, to that end, yes, I do this Plague Dad, but I also run a little blog in town called That Portland Sound.
Oh, really?
Where I try to bring some attention to bands that I like.
Yeah.
So I'll just write up little pieces about bands that I like, and I'll put that out there.
Oh, okay.
And, I was a reporter for a long time, so I write.
I totally want to read this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I update it infrequently. I'm thinking I really need to start making that more of a regular thing. And I'm actually toying with the idea of making it a print thing.
Really?
Remember the old school zines? Where people would just, I'm going to make this into a zine.
We have Paper Jam Magazine. Yeah. We've had them on the show. And,
I'm going to do that with this.
There is a market for it.
And I'm going to, I've costed it out. I'm going to print up 250 copies, probably 24 pages, and I'm going to put together a compilation CD and just glue it into the back page.
Awesome.
And just drop it around town.
Yeah.
So you'll find 10 copies in a cafe.
Yep.
You'll find 10 copies at Gino's. You'll find 10 copies at Hi-Fi in Portland, which is one of my other favorite venues. That place is fantastic.
Oh, I love it. I'm
going to start doing that as well.
Fantastic. And of course, the website is
plague.dad.
Plague.dad.
And I'm on Bandcamp as well. If you want, and you can buy the records there. I have other merch. I have T-shirts, I have bandanas. A lot of this stuff is sold out, which is crazy. I gotta up my merch.
Your logo's awesome.
Thank you so
Your
much.
logo is totally awesome.
Oh yeah, the logo.
And I love your music because it makes me smile.
Well, that's great, fantastic. That's one of the best things that anybody's ever said to me.
And for those watching online too, let me hold this up again. The 7-inch vinyl.
I love this artwork.
And you can see that. Yeah, the artwork is very, very cool.
That's like I say. Paul Courtjohn is the artist there. If you like his stuff, he's just got a crazy amount of independent comics that he produces.
And you're playing. You've got shows this weekend.
Yeah. We're playing. Well, the next one is in Ellsworth. So there's a new place in Ellsworth called the Black Moon Public House, and this is my new favorite place in Maine because it is a pub and it's a record store together.
Yeah.
So you can go in
really cool.
and they're having live shows there. So I was there, back earlier this summer, and the place had a soft opening, and I walked in and I saw that and looked around. And I found Steve Pierce, the impresario.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, do you ever do any in-stores here? He's like, yeah, sure. So I just started playing there.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I've played there a couple, 3 times now. But now he trusts me a little bit. I don't know, whether, but for better or for worse.
Right.
So this weekend, Saturday, November 2nd, I'm bringing up a couple of friends of mine from Portland, and we're going to just Portland comes to Ellsworth. So Plague Dad will be there. Crying Caleb is going to be there, and a gentleman named Fine Pioneer.
Okay.
And he's got a new single out that's just amazing. It's called Both Sides of Sleepy, and it's a fantastic song. So we're going to take that show on the road. We're going to go up to Ellsworth on the 2nd, and we're going to play that.
Okay.
And there's a couple in Skowhegan. There's some young people that are organizing shows there now, house parties and other venues. So that they reached out to me and asked me if I'd come up play a couple there. And I said, oh, of course I will, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the Spring Point Tavern in South Portland.
Okay.
is right across the street from SMCC, from Southern Maine Community College. They're doing live music now. And Crying Caleb got a show there, and he asked me if I would play that show with him. I said, hell yeah, of course I will. Yeah, so we're playing there on, I want to say the 9th. These are all on my website, plague.dad. I put every show, this is on there, and there's a mailing list if you want to stay up with things. I promise I won't spam you, but there's a lot of really cool stuff going on, and drop a line.
Outstanding. Well, thank you again, Plague Dad. This has been amazing. What should we close with? I'll let you pick.
Oh, let's play the one tune we haven't played yet, which is what Ran Us Off, right? There's actually a video for this on YouTube as well.
Ran Us Off. I don't see that one.
I don't have the record from me. I can't remember.
I've got
on there.
Just As Well.
Just As Well. No, that's not on there. That's not on the record.
Oh, that's one of the ones you sent me.
Yeah. You know what? Play that. Go ahead and play that. That's a great little tune.
Okay, yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
That's more of a country song.
We'll give. Oh, okay. We'll give this a spin, and then if you are listening live on Saturday, of course, coming up in the second hour in just a couple of minutes, we've got October Suns. Dave Wally is here in the building, and I think he's got how many? Is it just Dave and Chris, or is
Nope, 4 people.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. And these are some old
I can
and
make it more space.
some old and dear friends of mine.
Right on.
So I'm really looking forward to that. And then in the third hour today, we have Rebecca Turmel. So stick around. But here it is, Plague Dad. This is Just As Well.
And it's just as well. Would have ended up in heartache either way. Now there's nothing left for either one of us to say. And it's just as well. I always thought that we would have ourselves another day. I keep drinking till your memory fades away. And we say goodbye. And it's just as well. It would have ended up in heartache either way. So I keep drinking till your memory fades away. And it's just as well. I always thought that we would have ourselves another day. Now there's nothing left for either one of us to say. Except goodbye. And it's just as well. Would have ended up in heartache either way. Now there's nothing left for either one of us to say. And it's just as well. I always thought that we would have ourselves another day.